Did you know the importance of the role the moon plays in not only our daily lives as human beings, but in our astrological understandings of things? Most of us like to consider the sun sign, which is obviously a very powerful representation of not only our ego, but our personal path, so to speak, or hero's journey that we will be taking during this life. But if you were born at night, meaning after the sun has gone down and before the sun has risen, you are what is considered a lunar or nocturnal being, meaning that the moon is going to actually be the planet that's going to be playing a much more significant role in your life than the sun. Whereas those of you who are born with sun after sunrise and up to sunset during the daytime are going to be much more ruled by their solar positioning. Now, of course, people are always making fun of astrology. They think it doesn't make any sense, but I believe it's actually fairly easy to see the impact that the moon has on the earth when we look at the seas rising, the tidal patterns, as well as the emotional patterns of human beings when the moon is in different phases. This is very easy to consider for how it would affect us as human beings when we realize that our bodies are made up of anywhere from 50 to 75% water, that's going to be really reacting and activating these different aspects of ourselves. Hi, my name is Michael Bartlett, Master Metaphysical Astrologer. My website is coremichael.com, and thank you for watching this. The interesting part with the lunar phases themselves, meaning the ways in which the moon travels around the earth each month, which takes roughly 28 and a half days, there are eight different phases that happen that affect the ways in which we go about doing our lives. I'm not going to go over each of the 8 phases. I really prefer doing the quarter phases, which makes such a big, profound impression. But the more subtle phases that happen in between, roughly like every 7 days, are going to be something that is also going to be very highly activated. But when we think of moon dark, which, as I said, when the earth is in between the sun and the moon, making the moon fully dark, this is a good beginning time. These are the times we want to make our plans. Roughly about a week after that is when we have the first quarter square. This is considered the crisis in action, and therefore is when whatever plans we make when that new moon happened, we get to realize and see some of the things that we maybe need to change and make adjustments. I like to think of the quarter phases as being changing times. So when we get to that first quarter square, it's traditionally known as crisis in action, or what I like to see is 1 step forward, 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's basically a cautionary time when we have to really review what is it that we put into effect for our plans that are making it, and what do we need to adjust to make sure that it's actually going to realize its full potential when it gets up to that full moon phase, which happens about 2 weeks after the new moon phase. That full moon phase, of course, most of us are really aware of it, is when the La Bella Luna is in its full brilliance up in the sky, shining its light on us at night. It's not the best time for our emotional connection sometimes. It can really bring up our conflicts and our issues with others. But it's also this time when our plans can be fully realized and we kind of see what it's going to look like when it gets into full-fledged action. Another week after this, and we get to the third quarter phase, which I like to call the crisis in consciousness, or what I didn't know I didn't know. The easiest way to consider this is when we're younger, we don't realize all the possible actions and issues that can come up when we make our plans. But as we get older, we get to see that there are so many moving parts in our lives that can have an effect that we didn't think of when we made our original plans. And that's why it says, I didn't know that I didn't know. And as we live on the planet long enough and we go through enough of these lunar cycles, we can kind of understand and see how our 28 and a half day cycle works for each and every one of us. Because of course, the way this cycle is going to affect you personally is the ways in which your moon in your personal astrological chart is going through and affecting all of your other planets, and also the types of relationships your moon has in your natal chart, meaning whether you have a square or a trine or a sextile, meaning whether you have a supportive aspect to your moon or whether things are going to always just be like, oh my God, why is life so hard? Especially for those of us who have Saturn square the moon, or actually almost any aspect with Saturn and the moon between one another. But this will definitely affect the ways in which you manifest and go about doing what your plans are. So when we get back up to that third quarter square, this is considered the crisis in consciousness. This is the I didn't know that I didn't know. And we make these further adjustments so that we can get to the next phase, which is closing down the cycle after the balsamic phase and starting our cycle again. I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit like and share with your friends, and look forward to my other videos. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day.